The great chamber of the Galactic Council hummed with hundreds of voices. Representatives from 47 different species filled the massive hall, their varied forms creating a tapestry of colors, shapes, and sizes. Some floated in specialized atmosphere bubbles, others stood on multiple legs or coiled their serpentine bodies around custom seating. The air filtration systems worked overtime to accommodate dozens of different atmospheric requirements. Ambassador Kelvor of the Vrexian Empire rose from his seat. His blue-scaled body gleamed under the chamber lights as his four eyes scanned the assembly. The room gradually fell silent. Kelvor was known for his dramatic presentations and today promised to be no different. "Honored colleagues," Kelvor began, his voice amplified across the vast space. "For 300 years we have tolerated an insult to this council. For 300 years we have allowed a single species to claim territory and refuse all contact. For 300 years we have respected boundaries set by a civilization that showed no exceptional qualities to earn such privilege." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Everyone knew what he was talking about. The humans, the forbidden sector. 12 light years of space that no ship dared enter. Kelvor continued, his voice rising with passion. "I speak, of course, of humanity, a species that made contact with us, participated in exactly 14 council sessions, and then retreated behind their borders with nothing but a simple message." He activated a holographic display. Ancient text appeared floating in the air above the assembly. "No species enters human space. This is our only warning." That was all, Kelvor said, gesturing at the words. No explanation. No negotiation. Just a demand and a threat. And we, the Great Galactic Council, have obeyed like frightened children for 3 centuries. An older representative, one of the Cathara, shifted in her seat. Her crystalline body refracted light in patterns that suggested unease. "Ambassador Kelvor, perhaps there were reasons." "Reasons," Kelvor interrupted. "What reasons?" "I have reviewed the historical records extensively. Humanity was unremarkable in every way. Average technology, barely capable of faster-than-light travel. Average military capability, nothing our collective forces couldn't handle easily. Average physiology, no special adaptations or abilities. They were ordinary, and yet they made demands as if they ruled the galaxy." A younger representative, a Tilrax barely 50 years into her career, spoke up. "My empire has only existed for 200 years. We never met these humans. Why should we be bound by warnings issued before we even achieved spaceflight? This is nothing but arrogance from a minor species." Several others voiced agreement. The newer council members, species that had joined after humanity's withdrawal, saw the situation differently than the older members. To them it was an insult, an unjustified restriction on their freedom to explore and expand. The Cathara elder tried again. "I was present at the final session humanity attended. There was something in their eyes, a kind of fear. Fear of us, perhaps," Kelvor said smoothly. "Fear that they would be revealed as insignificant and be forced to participate in galactic affairs as equals, rather than as mysterious isolationists. I propose we end this charade. I propose we send a diplomatic mission into human space, a mission with sufficient military escort to ensure our representatives are respected and heard." "You mean an invasion fleet," the Cathara said flatly. "Mean a diplomatic mission with appropriate security?" Kelvor replied. "If the humans are reasonable, they will negotiate. If they are not, they will be reminded that the Galactic Council does not recognize unilateral claims to territory without justification." The debate continued for hours. The older species, those who had actually met humans, were cautious. They remembered humanity as quiet, almost withdrawn during their brief participation in council affairs. Nothing threatening, but nothing forgettable either. There had been something unsettling about them, though no one could quite articulate what. The younger species were eager to assert council authority. They had built civilizations, conquered worlds, and achieved wonders without ever hearing a human voice. The idea that their expansion was limited by an ancient warning from a species none of them had met seemed ridiculous. Finally, the vote was called. The chamber fell silent as the results appeared on the main display. 38 in favor, 9 against. The motion passed. The Cathara elder stood slowly, her crystalline form chiming softly. "If you proceed with this action, know that I voted against it. Know that I remember the humans and I remember the fear in their eyes. It was not fear of us. It was fear of themselves. Ask yourselves why a species would voluntarily exile themselves from galactic civilization. What could drive such a choice? But her words were lost in the celebration. Kelvor was already organizing the expeditionary fleet. Representatives from multiple empires pledged ships and personnel. This would be the largest fleet assembled in 200 years, a show of unity and strength. Within weeks, the fleet began gathering at the border of human space. 47 warships, each representing the pinnacle of their civilization's military technology. Admiral Thress, a veteran Vrexian commander, was chosen to lead the expedition. His reputation was built on successful peacekeeping missions and diplomatic resolutions. He was stern but fair, a warrior who preferred negotiation but wouldn't hesitate to use force if necessary. As the fleet prepared to depart, Thress reviewed everything known about humanity. The records were surprisingly sparse. Humans had visited 23 council worlds during their brief period of contact. They had traded some cultural items, shared basic scientific information, and then suddenly announced their withdrawal. There were images of humans. They looked fragile, soft-skinned bipeds with minimal natural defenses. No claws, no armor plating, no venomous glands. They relied entirely on tools and technology. Their ships had been functional but unimpressive. Their weapons adequate but not exceptional. Nothing in the records suggested any reason for their demand. Nothing explained why the council had honored it for so long. The older records mentioned that the humans had seemed nervous, eager to conclude their business and return home. Some observers had noted that humans avoided large gatherings and seemed uncomfortable in crowds of aliens. Probably just xenophobia, one of Thress's officers suggested. They couldn't handle being part of a larger community, so they ran home and tried to make themselves seem important with their warning. Thress wasn't so sure. He had lived long enough to know that things were rarely that simple. But orders were orders. The council had voted, and he would execute their will. Perhaps the humans would see reason. Perhaps this could all be resolved peacefully. The fleet formed up at the boundary of human space. Automated warning buoys floated in the darkness, ancient technology still faithfully broadcasting their message after 3 centuries. Thress read the warning one final time. No species enters human space. This is our only warning, he gave the order. The fleet crossed the boundary and entered human territory. Behind them, the warning buoys continued their endless broadcast, speaking to empty space. Far away, on hundreds of human worlds, alerts began to sound. After 300 years of isolation, someone had finally crossed the line. The invasion had begun. Admiral Thress stood on the bridge of the Valiant Dawn, his flagship and the pride of the Vrexian fleet. Around him, officers monitored dozens of displays showing the positions of all 47 warships. The formation was perfect, a demonstration of military precision designed to impress anyone watching. And someone was definitely watching. Admiral, we're detecting multiple sensor sweeps, his tactical officer reported, origin points scattered throughout the system. They're not hiding their presence, sir. They want us to know they're observing us. Thress studied the tactical display. Small icons marked the location of human vessels. They maintained their distance, never approaching but never retreating either. Just watching. It was unnerving. Any hostile actions? Thress asked. No, sir. No weapons locks, no aggressive maneuvering. They're just there. 2 days into human space and everything felt wrong. Not dangerous exactly, just off. The fleet had passed 3 colonized systems so far. Each one showed signs of thriving civilization. Orbital stations, surface cities visible from space, regular traffic between planets and moons. But no one challenged the fleet. No one even hailed them. Communications officer, what are you picking up from human channels? The officer adjusted her equipment, her antennae twitching. Standard civilian traffic, Admiral. Weather reports, entertainment broadcasts, commercial shipping schedules. Nothing military. Nothing about us at all. That's impossible, Thress muttered. A fleet this size enters their space and they don't even mention it? Perhaps they're trying not to provoke us, suggested Commander Rix, his second in command, showing that they're peaceful, non-threatening. Or they don't consider us a threat, another officer said quietly. The bridge fell silent. It was an uncomfortable thought. The greatest fleet assembled in 2 centuries, and the humans couldn't even be bothered to acknowledge it. On the 4th day, something changed. A single ship appeared on sensors moving toward the fleet from the direction of Earth. It was small, unarmed, clearly designed for diplomacy rather than combat. "Finally," Thress said. "Open a channel." The view screen activated, showing the interior of the human vessel. A woman sat in what appeared to be a simple command chair. She looked to be middle-aged by human standards, her dark hair streaked with gray. Her expression was calm, almost sad. "I am Ambassador Chen of Earth," she said. Her voice was clear, her pronunciation of galactic standard flawless. "I wish this meeting were under better circumstances." "I am Admiral Thress of the Galactic Council Expeditionary Force," Thress replied formally. "We come on the Council's authority to establish diplomatic relations with humanity. Your isolation has lasted long enough." Chen smiled, but there was no happiness in it. "Admiral, you were warned. 300 years ago, we made our position clear. We are not hostile to the galaxy, but we require our space to remain inviolate." This was not a request born of arrogance, but of necessity. "Necessity?" Thress asked. "Ambassador, I have reviewed your records. Humanity presents no exceptional qualities that justify such demands. The Council has voted to normalize relations whether you wish it or not." "I understand," Chen said softly. "I have argued for 3 decades that we should explain ourselves, that the galaxy deserves to know why we ask for isolation. But I was outvoted. The majority of human leadership believes that ignorance is safer than knowledge in this case." "Safer for whom?" "For everyone, Admiral." Chen leaned forward. "I am authorized to tell you this much. We isolated ourselves to protect the galaxy, not to hide from it. Please turn your fleet around. We are not your enemy unless you make us one. You still have time." Thress felt his scales ripple with irritation. "Ambassador Chen, your warning is noted and rejected. This fleet represents the will of 47 species. We will proceed to Earth. We will establish a council embassy, and humanity will rejoin galactic civilization as an equal member, not as a mysterious hermit demanding special treatment." Chen closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them, they glistened with unshed tears. "I tried. I want you to remember that I tried." She looked directly at Thress. "Admiral, when this is over, please remember that we warned you. We warned you and you chose not to listen. What happens next is not our fault." The transmission ended. Chen's ship turned and accelerated away, moving faster than Thress expected possible from such a small vessel. "Dramatic exit," Commander Rix commented. "Continue on course," Thress ordered, but Chen's words echoed in his mind. The sadness in her voice had been genuine. Not fear, not anger, sadness. As if she mourned for something that hadn't happened yet. The fleet pressed on toward Earth. More human ships appeared, maintaining their watchful distance. Thress noticed they were all civilian vessels. Cargo haulers, passenger liners, research ships. Where was humanity's military? Where were the defense fleets? "They must be hiding, waiting to ambush us near Earth," an officer suggested. But when they entered Earth's solar system 5 days later, there were no defense fleets. Just the same civilian traffic they'd seen everywhere else. Orbital stations around Earth looked more like commercial hubs than military installations. "Admiral, we're receiving thousands of communications from the planet," the communications officer reported. "They're not military channels, sir. They're civilian. News broadcasts, social media, personal messages. The humans know we're here." "What are they saying?" The officer looked confused. "They're disappointed, sir. Sad. There are some angry voices calling for resistance, but most of the chatter is just mourning, as if something precious has been lost." Thress studied the blue-green planet on his view screen. Earth. Humanity's homeworld. It looked peaceful, beautiful even. Not the homeworld of a species that should inspire 300 years of isolation. He opened a channel to the planet. "This is Admiral Thress of the Galactic Council. I address the government of Earth. Submit to Council authority and allow us to establish embassy facilities, or we will interpret your silence as hostility. You have 1 hour to respond." 30 minutes later, Chen's face appeared on the view screen again. She looked tired, older somehow than she had just days ago. "Admiral, the Earth government has authorized me to respond. We will not submit to Council authority. We will not allow embassies in our space. We asked for isolation and you have violated it, but we are not your enemy." She paused. "However, I must inform you that you have made a terrible mistake. The people of Earth are now fully aware of your fleet's presence. 500 billion humans are now focused on you, Admiral. focused on this situation. Do you understand what that means? Should I be impressed by numbers? Thress asked. You should be terrified, Chen said simply. But you won't believe me. You'll only understand when it starts. Admiral, I am officially requesting that you withdraw your fleet immediately. For your own safety and the safety of your crews. Thress had heard enough. Your warning is rejected. All ships prepare to fire a demonstration shot at the designated uninhabited moon. Let's show these humans what defiance costs. Admiral, please. Chen's voice was desperate now. Thress cut the transmission. Fire on my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark. The fleet fired. Brilliant beams of energy lanced out toward the small moon. Enough firepower to crack a moon in half focused on a single point. A demonstration of power. A warning, but something was wrong. The beams flickered, wavered, faded. Sensors went haywire. Warning klaxons began sounding across the bridge. What's happening? Thress demanded. I don't know, sir. Systems are failing across the fleet. Weapons, shields, navigation, everything's going offline. On the view screen, Chen's face appeared again. She hadn't left after all. Tears ran down her face. You were warned, she whispered. Now the galaxy learns the price of arrogance. The bridge of the Valiant Dawn descended into chaos. Every console flashed warning symbols. Lights flickered. The main view screen showed static before switching to backup power. Around Admiral Thress, officers shouted reports over each other. Weapon systems offline. Shields dropping to 40%. Navigation computer crashed, rebooting. Life support stable but showing anomalous readings. Thress gripped the arms of his command chair. Damage report. What hit us? That's just it, sir. The tactical officer said, his voice shaking. Nothing hit us. There were no incoming weapons. No energy signatures consistent with attack. Our systems are just failing. All ships reporting similar problems, Admiral. Communications added. But it's not uniform. Some ships are barely affected, others are completely dead in space. 14 ships aren't responding at all. They're just drifting. Commander Rix pulled up a display. Sir, I'm seeing a pattern. The ships that are worst affected are the ones that fired their weapons. The Valiant Dawn is experiencing moderate failures. We gave the order but didn't fire directly. Ships that didn't fire at all are barely affected. That makes no sense, Thress said. Unless the humans have some kind of weapon that responds to hostile action. A new voice cut through the bridge chatter. It's not a weapon. Everyone turned. On one of the auxiliary screens, Ambassador Chen's face appeared. She looked directly at the camera, her expression grave. It's not a weapon, Admiral Thress. It's us, it's what we are. It's why we begged you to stay away. What are you talking about? Thress demanded. What have you done to my fleet? We haven't done anything, Chen said. That's what you don't understand. We don't have to do anything. It just happens. Admiral, do you know why humanity withdrew from galactic civilization 300 years ago? Do you know what we discovered about ourselves? Before Thress could answer, another officer spoke up. Admiral, Medical Bay is reporting strange symptoms among the crew. Nothing critical yet, but cellular aging appears to be accelerating in some personnel. Others are experiencing the opposite, healing faster than normal. It's completely random, Chen nodded sadly. It's starting. The more humans who focus on your fleet, the stronger the effect becomes. Admiral, I'm going to tell you something that my government classified 3 centuries ago. I'm breaking the law to tell you this, but you need to understand what's happening. She took a deep breath. 350 years ago, humanity began to colonize space. We were so proud, so excited to be reaching for the stars. Then something strange happened on a colony world called New Haven. There was a dispute between 2 settlements over water rights, just a minor disagreement that got heated. About 10,000 humans on each side, angry, focused, demanding their rights. What happened? Thress asked. The settlement that opposed the water sharing aged 50 years in a single night. Every person, every animal, every plant. The buildings weathered as if exposed to decades of harsh climate. The opposition died, Admiral. Not from violence, not from weapons. They died because 10,000 angry humans unconsciously wanted them gone, and reality bent to accommodate that desire. The bridge fell silent. Everyone stared at the screen. That's impossible, Rix whispered. We thought so too, Chen continued. We investigated. We ran experiments. We made a horrifying discovery. Humans possess a latent ability that we don't even consciously control. We call it reality anchoring. Every human being is like a a weight on the fabric of existence. And when enough of us focus on something, when we really pay attention to it, reality becomes stubborn. It resists change. It resists anything we perceive as wrong or threatening. She gestured to something off-screen. But it's not consistent. It's not controllable. It depends on our emotional state, our level of focus, our numbers. And it doesn't just affect us, it affects everything around us. Your ship's weapons failed because 500 billion humans are now aware of your presence. 500 billion minds unconsciously rejecting the idea of violence in their home space. This is insane, Thress said. If this were true, you could conquer the galaxy. Could we? Chen asked. Admiral, we can barely control this ability. We discovered it by accident, and have spent 3 centuries trying to understand it. Do you know what happens when humans panic? When they're afraid? The effect intensifies, uncontrollably. She pulled up a historical file. Images appeared showing abandoned alien settlements. 20 years after the New Haven incident, we had just begun to understand what we were. An alien trading post established in our solar system. It was approved by Earth government, perfectly legal. Then there was an accident. An explosion on the trading post killed 300 humans working there. The images showed ships fleeing, stations abandoned. The alien traders weren't responsible. It was just an accident, but 20 billion humans focused their grief and anger on that trading post. The traders started aging. Their technology began failing. Some of them went insane from the reality distortions. They fled, Admiral. They ran from us in terror, and we couldn't stop it from happening. We couldn't control what we were doing to them. Thress felt cold. So you isolated yourselves. We had no choice. We were dangerous. Not because we wanted to be, but because we simply existed. The more of us there were, the stronger the effect. And we were breeding across hundreds of worlds. The decision was unanimous. We withdrew from galactic space. We set up the boundary. We sent the warning. Not because we hated you, but because we couldn't trust ourselves not to hurt you. Another alarm sounded. Admiral, 6 more ships just went completely dark. And I'm getting reports of psychological effects among the crews. Hallucinations, memory problems, temporal distortions. Temporal distortions? Thress asked. Chen nodded. Time itself becomes flexible when enough humans focus on a threat. Admiral, you need to evacuate your crews from the dead ships and retreat. Now, before it gets worse. We've tried to train ourselves, tried to develop discipline and control, but 500 billion humans just became aware that their home is being invaded. I can't stop what they're unconsciously doing to you. No one can. You expect me to believe this? Thress said, but his voice lacked conviction. Around him, his bridge crew were experiencing the evidence firsthand. Systems that had worked perfectly for decades were failing for no reason. The laws of physics seemed to be taking a holiday in human space. Look at your sensors, Admiral, Chen said quietly. Really look at them. You're detecting probability anomalies, aren't you? Events that should be impossible happening all around you. Quantum effects at macro scales. That's us. That's humanity. We don't attack you with weapons. We exist and the universe bends around us. Thress checked his sensors. She was right. The readings made no sense. Things were happening that violated basic physical laws. A ship's reactor was running backwards. Another ship's hull was aging and de-aging in cycles. One vessel reported that the same 5 minutes had repeated 3 times. We're not gods, Chen continued. We're not even in control. We're more like a natural disaster, a storm that walks on 2 legs and talks and builds civilizations. We never wanted to be this. We just are. Commander Rix turned to Thress. Admiral, we need to retreat. Whatever this is, we can't fight it. We can't even understand it. Thress looked at the tactical display. 14 ships dead. 6 more going dark. The rest experiencing cascading system failures. And all of it happening because they were being paid attention to by a species they had dismissed as unremarkable. How do we stop this? He asked Chen. Leave, she said simply. Leave human space. Once you're beyond our boundary, once you're out of focus, the effect will fade. Your systems will recover. Your crews will heal. But you have to go now, Admiral. The longer you stay, the more humans become aware of you. The stronger it gets. And I promise you, you don't want to see what happens if this escalates further. Thress made his decision. All ships execute emergency evacuation of dead vessels. Transfer crews to functional ships. Then full retreat to the boundary. Maximum speed. As the fleet began its chaotic withdrawal, Thress looked at Chen one last time. Why warn us at all? Why not let us die? Because we're still human, Admiral, Chen said softly. We make mistakes. We feel compassion. We hope for better. We isolated ourselves not because we hate you, but because we couldn't bear to become the monsters our abilities could make us. We chose exile over dominion. We chose loneliness over the risk of genocide. That choice cost us everything, but it was the right one. The view screen went dark. The fleet fled toward the boundary, leaving behind only the wreckage of Arrogance and the echo of a warning that should have been heeded. The journey back to Council space felt like it took years, though it was only 3 weeks. Admiral Thress watched his fleet limp home, 17 ships lost, thousands of crew members dead or irreparably changed. Some crew members had aged 70 years. Others had regressed to childlike mental states. A few simply vanished from their ships, leaving no trace of their existence except in the memories of their crewmates. The worst part was not knowing if those memories were even real anymore. Commander Rix had developed a stutter. The ship's doctor said there was no physical cause. Her brain was fine, but she had experienced time repeating itself 17 times in a row while trapped in an escape pod, and her mind couldn't quite accept that it was over. We should have listened to the Wu warning, she said to Thress in the privacy of his quarters. The 300 years they stayed away. The 300 years were warning us. We thought it was arrogance. It was mercy. Thress had no response. He had read the reports from every ship. The stories were nightmare fuel. A weapons officer who had pulled the trigger to fire on the moon had lived the same day 143 times, aware of each repetition, unable to break the cycle until they crossed back over the boundary. A navigator whose ship's computer had decided that up was down and left was tomorrow. A pilot who watched her hands age and de-age with each heartbeat until she no longer knew how old she was or what age even meant. And the humans had done none of it intentionally. That was the terrifying part. They hadn't attacked. They had simply existed with focus, and existence itself had bent around them. When the fleet finally crossed into Council space, they were met by medical ships and emergency crews. The news had traveled ahead of them. Wild stories, accusations of weapons tests, fears of human invasion. The truth, Thress knew, was far stranger than any invasion. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session. This time, every representative attended in person. No one wanted to miss this. Thress stood before them, a broken admiral reporting the impossible. He presented the sensor logs, the medical reports, the recordings of Ambassador Chen's explanations. He showed them data that made no scientific sense. Probability cascades, temporal loops, localized reality distortions, they call it reality anchoring, Thress said, his voice hoarse. Every human being is a point of stability in the universe. The more of them that focus on something, the more reality resists any change to it. But it's not controllable. It's unconscious. When 500 billion humans became aware of our fleet as a threat, the universe itself began rejecting our presence. The chamber was silent. Thress could see disbelief on many faces, but others, the older species, looked merely tired, as if they had always known something like this was possible. The Kethera elder rose. Her crystalline body had lost some of its luster, dimmed by the weight of being proven right. 6,000 years ago, my people encountered a species called the Vrellan. They possessed a similar ability, though less powerful. Where they walked, reality became fluid. Where they lived, the laws of physics became suggestions. They didn't mean to cause harm, but wherever they went, chaos followed. Entire star systems became unstable. Planets aged millennia in moments or regressed to primordial states. She looked around the chamber. The Vrellan tried to isolate themselves. They built barriers, warned other species away, but we didn't listen. We thought we knew better. We sent expeditions into their space, seeking to study them, to control them, to exploit their abilities. And in doing so, we triggered a cascade effect. Billions of Vrellan, panicked by invasion, unconsciously defending their territory. An entire sector of space became uninhabitable. 4 species went extinct. The Vrellan themselves died out, destroyed by their own defensive reflex. The chamber remained silent. The humans learned from our mistake, the Kethara continued. They recognized what they were before it was too late. They isolated themselves by choice, not by nature. They have spent 300 years training their young, teaching discipline, learning to control unconscious responses. And even with all that effort, all that sacrifice, they are still dangerous. Not because they want to be, but because existence itself bends to accommodate them. Ambassador Kelvor stood slowly. He looked like he had aged 100 years in the week since the vote. I brought this motion. I insisted we assert council authority. I called humanity arrogant, his voice broke. 17 ships, thousands dead or worse, and they warned us. They warned us, and I called it arrogance. He sat down heavily, his scales dull with shame. The debate that followed lasted for hours. Some representatives called for immediate military action, a preemptive strike to eliminate the human threat before it could spread. Others pointed out that the expedition had proven such action would be suicide. A few suggested biological weapons, attacks that wouldn't trigger the defensive response. The Cathara elder stood again, her voice ringing with fury. Have you learned nothing? The Vrelin died because we kept pushing them, kept threatening them. The more afraid they became, the stronger their abilities manifested. The humans have maintained perfect control for 3 centuries. They have harmed no one. They asked only to be left alone. And the moment we violated their space, the moment we threatened their home, their unconscious defenses activated. Do you truly want to see what happens if we terrify 500 billion beings with reality-warping abilities? That silenced the war talk. Ambassador Chen requested permission to address the council remotely. Her image appeared on the view screen, transmitted from the edge of human space. Honored representatives, she said, I stand before you as someone who broke my own government's laws to save lives. I revealed our nature to Admiral Thress because I believed you deserved to know the truth, even though my people have kept this secret for 300 years. She looked tired, older than she had weeks ago. Humanity is now debating what to do. Some want to deepen our isolation, to cut off all communication with the galaxy. They fear that any contact will lead to more incidents. Others want to explain ourselves fully, to share our research in hopes that understanding will prevent future conflicts. I am among those who believe transparency is the only path forward. Chen paused. I want you to understand something. We didn't ask for this ability. We don't want it. We have spent 3 centuries teaching our children to meditate, to control their emotions, to remain calm in crisis. Every human learns from childhood that their unconscious thoughts can affect reality, that anger or fear can cause unintended harm. We live with constant discipline, constant awareness. It is exhausting. It is lonely, and it has cost us connection with the wider galaxy. But we made that choice because we refuse to be monsters. We refuse to let our nature become an excuse for domination. We could have conquered the galaxy. Our presence alone would make us invincible. But what would we be then? What would we become if we gave in to that temptation? She looked directly at the camera. We are still human. We still value life. We still believe that every species has a right to exist free from fear. That's why we isolated ourselves. That's why we sent the warning. Not to threaten you, but to protect you from ourselves. The council voted again. This time the result was unanimous. The human boundary would be respected, expanded even, triple the previous size, monitored by neutral parties to ensure no accidental crossings. No ships would enter human space. No contact would be initiated without explicit human permission. But something else happened too. Something unexpected. Humanity, through Ambassador Chen, proposed cultural exchanges. Not physical meetings, but data transfers. Art, music, literature, scientific theories, philosophical debates. Information that could be shared without risk, without proximity, without the danger of triggering defensive reflexes. Some council members rejected the idea immediately. Others, curious despite their fear, agreed to consider it. The Cathara elder met privately with Admiral Thress after the session. How are you holding up? She asked. Thress looked at his hands. They shook sometimes now, for no reason he could identify. I dream about it. About pulling that trigger. About ordering the demonstration shot. In my dreams, I watch the fleet die over and over. Sometimes I'm the one aging. Sometimes I'm the one stuck in temporal loops. I wake up not knowing how old I am or when I am. Guilt is appropriate, the Cathara said. But don't let it consume you. You made a mistake. The council made a mistake. But you also listened when it mattered. You retreated. You saved most of your people. And most importantly, you told the truth about what happened. Others might have lied. Might have blamed the humans for aggressive action. You admitted we were wrong. 17 ships, Thress whispered. Yes, 17 ships, a terrible price. But consider the alternative. If you had pressed forward, if you had truly threatened Earth, how many ships would we have lost? How many species? The Vrelen incident cost 4 species their existence. You pulled back before it reached that point. That took courage. Thress didn't feel courageous. He felt hollowed out, haunted by the faces of the crew members who would never be the same. But he also felt something else. A strange sort of understanding. The humans lived with this burden every day. Every moment of their lives they had to maintain discipline and control, knowing that a loss of focus could harm others. 50 years passed, the galaxy remembered. Children learned about the Vrexian incident in history classes. Pilots training for their licenses studied the human boundary and the severe penalties for crossing it. Scientists debated the nature of reality anchoring in academic journals. Philosophers wrote treatises about the ethics of power and restraint. The human quarantine zone had tripled in size. Neutral monitoring stations staffed by rotating council personnel watched the boundary to prevent accidental crossings. In 50 years, there had been 3 incidents. One drunk cargo pilot who strayed over the line and immediately turned back when alarms sounded. 2 research vessels that got caught in gravity wells and briefly crossed the boundary before escaping. All 3 reported minor system glitches, but nothing serious. The humans, it seemed, didn't react to accidental intrusions the same way they reacted to intentional invasion, but the galaxy had changed in more subtle ways too. The cultural exchange program that Ambassador Chen proposed had grown beyond anyone's expectations. What started as simple data transfers had evolved into a rich dialogue between humanity and the rest of the galaxy. Humans shared their art and aliens discovered beauty in forms they'd never imagined. Aliens shared their music and humans wept at melodies that spoke to something universal. Human literature became popular across dozens of worlds. Their stories of struggle, of choosing the difficult right over the easy wrong, resonated with species who had their own stories of hard choices and heavy burdens. In return, humans devoured alien perspectives, alien histories, alien philosophies. They learned they were not alone in carrying difficult knowledge. Scientific collaboration happened through carefully moderated channels. Human researchers proposed theories about quantum mechanics and probability fields. Alien scientists offered observations from beyond human space. Together, they advanced understanding of the universe, never meeting face to face but working toward common goals. On a neutral station at the edge of human space, Ambassador Chen met with Admiral Thress. Both had aged, though Chen more noticeably. Humans age naturally. Thress still bore the marks of his encounter with reality distortion, his body not quite certain how old it was supposed to be. They met in a specially designed chamber with viewports showing both human and council space. Chen arrived by shuttle from human territory. Thress came from the other direction. They could meet here at the boundary, where neither side held advantage. Admiral Thress, Chen said, offering a human handshake. Thress, who had studied human customs extensively in the decades since the incident, accepted it. Physical contact was strange, unsettling for both species, but it was a bridge, a small one but real. Ambassador Chen, you look well. I'm dying, Chen said matter-of-factly. Cancer. I have perhaps 6 months, but I wanted to make this trip before I go, to see you one last time. Thress felt a pang of something he couldn't quite name. Guilt, sympathy? Kinship with someone who had lived through the same nightmare? I'm sorry, don't be. I'm 83 years old. I've lived a full life, and I got to see something I never thought I'd witness. Humanity and the galaxy finding a way forward together, even if we have to stay apart. She moved to the viewport overlooking human space. I never wanted to leave the galaxy, you know. When I was young, before we truly understood what we were, I dreamed of traveling to alien worlds, meeting new species, learning about the universe firsthand. But you chose isolation. We all did. Every generation of humans for 3.5 centuries has made the same choice. Stay separate. Stay disciplined. Protect the galaxy from ourselves, she smiled sadly. It's a terrible thing to be born dangerous, to know that your mere existence is a threat to others. But it's taught us something valuable. What's that? That power without restraint is tyranny. That the strongest person in the room has a responsibility to be the calmest, the most controlled, the most careful. We could have been conquerors. Instead, we chose to be hermits. And I think that choice made us better than we would have been otherwise. Thress sat down, his body creaking. He was over 200 years old now. Ancient for his species, and his brush with temporal distortion hadn't helped. I still have nightmares. About giving that order, about the fleet dying around me. I know. I have nightmares too. About all the humans throughout history who lost control, who hurt someone by accident because they were angry or afraid. We carry our guilt too, Admiral. Every human death caused by our nature weighs on us. Every alien who suffered because of us. We remember them all. They sat in silence for a while. Two old souls who had walked through fire and somehow survived. The younger generation doesn't understand, Thress said finally. The ones who weren't alive during the incident. They see the boundary as an inconvenience. Some of them argue that we should try again, that 50 years of calm means the danger is past. Chen laughed bitterly. We have the same problem. Young humans who've grown up with discipline, who've never seen what happens when control fails. They think we're being overly cautious. They want to open the borders, join the galaxy properly. We have to keep showing them the historical records, keep teaching them why we made this choice. Do you think there will ever be a time when humans can safely interact with the rest of the galaxy? Chen considered the question carefully. Maybe, in 1,000 years or 10,000. If we keep training, keep evolving, keep learning control. If we can find a way to truly master this ability instead of just suppressing it. But that's a dream for future generations. For now, this is the best we can do. Separate but connected. Apart but not isolated. She pulled out a data pad. I wanted to give you something before I die. It's been approved by both our government and the council. A full record of our research into reality anchoring. 350 years of study, experimentation, and theory. Maybe someday it will help someone. Maybe it will let other species understand us better. Or maybe it will just be a warning for any other species who discovers they have similar abilities. Thress accepted the datapad carefully, as if it might explode. In a way, it was more dangerous than any weapon. This is extraordinary. Your government is willing to share this? I convinced them. I argued that if we ever want to truly integrate with the galaxy, we need to start by sharing our truth. All of it. Not just the scary parts, but the scientific understanding, the control techniques we've developed. The successes and failures, everything. She stood up slowly, her body protesting. There's something else. Something I've never told anyone outside human space. The reason I fought so hard to explain ourselves to you, even when it was illegal. What's that? We're not just dangerous, Admiral. We're also potential. We're a species that can affect reality itself. And we're choosing to use that potential for discipline, for restraint, for protection. But what if someday we master this ability? What if we learn to control it consciously? We could do incredible things. Heal the wounded. Stabilize dying stars. Make barren worlds bloom. All the destruction we could cause, all of it could be turned toward creation instead. She looked at him with eyes that held hope and exhaustion in equal measure. That's my dream. That's what I've worked toward my whole life. A day when humanity doesn't have to be afraid of itself, when we can use our nature to help instead of harm, when we can finally, truly join the galactic community as equals, rather than as dangerous neighbors who must be kept at arm's length. Is that possible? Thress asked. I don't know, but isn't it worth trying? Isn't it worth hoping for? She extended her hand again. Admiral, you and I, we lived through the worst. We saw what happens when fear and arrogance collide, but we also saw what happens when people choose wisdom over pride. The galaxy learned restraint. Humanity learned transparency. Maybe that's enough for now. Maybe that's the foundation for something better. Thress took her hand. It was warm, fragile, but the grip was firm. Thank you, Ambassador. For warning us, for trying to save us even when we didn't listen, for giving us this chance to understand. Thank you for listening when it mattered, for retreating instead of pressing forward, for telling the truth about what happened. She smiled. We're not so different, you know. Humans and aliens. We all make mistakes. We all carry regrets. But we can all choose to do better. They stood at the viewport together, looking out at the vast expanse of space. Somewhere out there, human children were learning meditation and control, preparing for a lifetime of discipline. Somewhere out there, alien children were learning about the boundary and the importance of respecting it. Two civilizations, separate but aware of each other, learning to coexist. 6 months later, Ambassador Chen died peacefully in her sleep on Earth. The Council held a moment of silence in her honor. Across human space, billions of people mourned the woman who had spent her life trying to bridge the gap between humanity and the galaxy. 20 years after that, the first joint human-alien research project produced a breakthrough in probability field theory. The researchers, working through data links and remote communication, never met in person. But they proved it was possible to work together, to achieve more together than either could alone. 30 years later, a young human named David and a young Vrexian named Kelix became friends.